You're watching Byline Wilmington on CBS 10 WILM. Here's your host, Don Ansell.
Jim Lucey's our guest. He serves on two major panels that have been exploring offshore energy and doing research on it. And we're talking about the Gulf oil spill. So how political is all of this? You've been on these two panels. Have you felt political pressure one way or another to skew some of it?
I really did not feel any political pressure. Of course, one is aware of the polls, like the polls that you're talking about, that show that there is overwhelming public support. That is political pressure in a way, but neither one of the political parties, and there were Republicans and Democrats on these panels, and so you know, I don't think that the political parties brought any political pressure particularly.
But you said representatives of the oil industry,
and
they had a definite bias.
I think you made the comment that did they check their bias at the door? I mean, I think that they were good people, and they tried hard to provide us with information, which I think they honestly believed.
We have a quote from the governor, and we'll get it up on screen. She was recently quoted as saying, "We know without a fact these things are going to happen. Anyone who thinks it won't happen if we drill off the coast of Carolina hasn't thought it through. This is part of doing business. We understand that things happen." You have a response to that?
That's the governor's point of view, I guess, and it is. I think it is realistic that in this case, as I've said, you can't be sure that nothing is going to happen. So I think that there is a risk, and people need to go into it with full understanding. And as you pointed out, this is a spreading risk. That is, it's tourism, it's the fishing industry, it's fish and wildlife, birds, it's everything.
She suggests, she went on to suggest in the same conversation that offshore drilling might be acceptable if we have plans in place to deal with these kinds of crises. Is that even possible? How do you know what's going to happen?
Well, you certainly have to have better plans in place than we had in the case of the Gulf.
So if we have our plan in place, then let's move forward.
Well, a plan ought to be for a catastrophic oil spill, and as we're seeing, there's no way to contain a catastrophic oil spill. So that I think that is the realistic plan.
And people, you were saying the benefits of drilling offshore, if there is oil off there, is 15 years away. All right, so they drill, they find. Where does it go? Well,
that is the other question. The two likely places for oil to go would be Morehead City or Wilmington. In fact, those are the only two likely places. Morehead City.
Raw crude you're talking about.
You're talking about crude oil, or
right.
Bringing it on.
Then it's got to be refined.
Bringing it on shore, right.
It doesn't go into your gas tank.
No, it does not. It has to be refined.
And where does that go?
In realistic terms, Don, that oil is not going to come to North Carolina. It's going to go to Norfolk, or it's going to go to Charleston. And
do we want it?
And it's going to be refined there. Well, now when we talk about this, we talk about jobs. What jobs are there going to be if the oil doesn't come in shore to North Carolina? It's a catch-22. You don't want the oil, but you want the jobs. But the jobs aren't going to come either. So when I looked at this in terms of what's in it for North Carolina, I asked the question: is there oil? Is North Carolina going to get any share of the leasing money? We don't know the answer to those two questions. Where's the oil going to come on shore? We don't have a good answer to that. And what are the environmental penalties or problems? Basically, I would have to say that I am very dubious about drilling offshore.
The feds were here recently to get comments from the public on the issue. What's the real purpose of that exercise? Do they care what the public thinks?
We hope so. We like to think that is the case, but I think there is also the possibility that it's a feel-good exercise that the public are asked what
so
they
think. So they can say that
we asked
that's
for public,
the hoop. We went through. We got public opinion.
That's correct. But I mean, I do have to say that commissions and boards that I've served on are influenced by what they hear from the public. If the public if there's really strong and consensus and different ideas and other things brought up, we do pay attention to those things.
Well, politicians pay attention to
Yes.
votes.
Correct.
And if people are going to be put out of office, they might go and fight.
Well, when you ask, is there politics involved in this issue, clearly the concept of drill, baby, drill was a political move. That was not a calculated balancing of the risks and the benefits.
So once again, what was the bottom line of the reports that both of these panels gave to the?
The first panel is the only one that is reported, and it reported
that was
the
General Assembly
from the General Assembly, and it was that we had to look very carefully at these issues, and that there were a lot of questions that needed to be answered before we could definitively say yes, you ought to drill.
But wasn't that? Did we need a panel to tell us that? I mean, didn't we know that? Were we looking for more direction?
Somebody was going to have to go, and I mean, we brought in expert witnesses from not just the oil industry, but from the environmental industry, from the environmental community, from various other groups. So there's a lot of information that is gathered in that, in terms of, for instance, where would you place wind farms? Where would the wind farms go? And when you look at it, it's a fairly constrained part of the offshore area, as a for instance.
The public seems to have a paradoxical view of things. We have consensus that we need to wean ourselves off of our oil addiction. We know it could take a decade or more to get the oil flowing from our offshore sources if we have it. We know the dangers involved. Why are we doing this?
Well, that's a very, very good question. And I think that I guess you could come back to the question of the politics of the issue, in which if the Democratic Party, and I think it's the Republican Party that has been primarily pushing the issue of drill, baby, drill, as a way, and the slogan is get us off foreign oil, get off our dependence on foreign oil, so we're not putting money into the pockets of our enemies. And that's a very persuasive argument. And so it's very hard for somebody to come out and say, no, I want to continue to be dependent on foreign oil.
Jim, thanks so much for joining us. Hopefully we'll talk more about this important issue. Next week, stay with us. Drugs, sex, texting, race, bullying. We're going to talk to two local teenagers about teens today. I'm Don Ansel for Byline Wilmington. We'll see you next week.
You've been watching Byline Wilmington on CBS 10 WILM. Join us every Sunday morning as we explore the issues that concern you.